what if the person trying to kill you was one of your own guards? This wasn't just a fear for Idi Amin. It was his reality. He ruled Uganda with an iron fist, but lived each night in terror that his own men would strike. March 26, 1974. Amin wakes up again, haunted. He dreamed of being assassinated in his sleep, not by rebels, by his own army. This wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. Some say dictators fear their people, but Amin feared everything: shadows in trees, whispers in corridors, and even spirits of the dead. To him, power came with paranoia, and paranoia became his only advisor. He wasn't born into power. He took it, with violence. In 1971, General Amin overthrew the president who trusted him, and once in charge, he trusted no one. Amin didn't just fear betrayal. He expected it. Every whisper, every glance, he saw as a plot. And if he suspected you, you disappeared. Even his closest allies began to vanish. Ministers, bodyguards, friends, one by one, they were gone. Amin once said, "I love having people close, so I can keep them in my sights." Each night, Amin stood alone on his palace balcony. Lights off, just watching. He didn't sleep. He listened to soldiers patrolling below, to trees rustling, to ghosts whispering. That morning, Amin received devastating news. His own cousin, General Arub, was planning a coup. Not just a betrayal, a blood betrayal. Family turning against family. Amin came from the Kakwa tribe. So did Arube. To Amin, this wasn't just treason. It was tribal shame. A crack in the foundation he thought would protect him. When you rule with fear, loyalty becomes an illusion. Amin was surrounded, but alone, and he knew it. The next few hours would test everything: his power, his family, and his sanity. He made executions public. Men in white aprons tied to posts. Their blood was meant to be seen. A warning, a theater of fear. This was Amin's idea of loyalty, through terror. His secret police weren't bound by law. They didn't need warrants, just suspicion. They dragged people from homes, beating them until bones broke. Their motto? Serve the president, not the people. Amin built a secret tunnel from his mansion to the torture prison. No witnesses, no records. He liked to be hands-on. Some say he carried a hammer, and silence was the last sound victims ever heard. His daughter remembers those nights. A father who never slept, who turned off all the lights, who watched soldiers like a hawk. Even she could feel the fear. Why was my father so afraid? She would ask herself. Some say Amin was guided not by generals, but by spirits. He believed his mother's rituals protected him. He wore amulets, chanted prayers, and sometimes he heard voices no one else could hear. A name could vanish overnight. One word from Amin and entire families disappeared. No trial, no explanation, just an empty chair, and no one dared to ask why. As Uganda sank into fear, Amin surrounded himself with luxury. Cars, mansions, mistresses. He ruled a starving nation while dining like a king. He had many wives, and even more children. Some say 40, some say more. Even his daughters weren't sure how many siblings they had. In his homes, a different wife in each. He was born in poverty. His father left early. His mother raised him alone. She was a healer and believed in spirits. From cane fields to the palace, Amin believed he had earned it all, with blood. Amin grew up under British rule. He wore their uniform, fought in their wars, but he never forgot. He was a soldier in someone else's empire, and someday he would build his own. In the colonial army, Amin learned one lesson above all: obedience. Punishment was swift, question nothing. His superiors shaped him into a weapon, one that would one day turn back on them. He rose fast. Amin's loyalty made him useful. His strength made him feared, and his silence made him dangerous. By the 1960s, he wasn't just a soldier, he was a force. In 1971, he struck. While President Obote was away, Amin seized power. No warning, no vote. Tanks rolled through Kampala, and Uganda's new ruler declared himself on the radio. At first, people cheered. Obote had ruled with a heavy hand. Amin promised freedom, stability. But promises fade. What came next was beyond anything Uganda had ever seen. Within months, Amin began purging enemies, army officers, civil servants, tribal leaders. Accusation was enough. A name on a list was a death sentence. Bodies began to disappear. Sometimes they were found floating in the Nile. Other times, they were never seen again. Uganda learned to speak in whispers. It said Amin fed bodies to the crocodiles, not just to destroy evidence, but to send a message. In Uganda, even the river had teeth. Amin distrusted other tribes. He filled the army with his own. The Kakwa, loyalty over unity. And so, Uganda divided itself under a flag of fear. Laws didn't matter. Only orders did. And orders came from Amin. He once said, "I am the law." In Uganda, justice wore a uniform. Amin built a secret tunnel beneath his mansion. It led straight to the torture chambers. He didn't need guards. He preferred to do things himself. Witnesses say he carried a hammer. He walked in silence. And when the screams stopped, he simply walked back, as if nothing happened. He told aides, "They talk too much. They die too fast." Fear became his signature. Death, his silence. But paranoia eats itself. He no longer trusted anyone. Not his soldiers, not his ministers, not even his own shadow. His cousin, General Arubi, once like a brother, was now a threat. The man Amin had promoted was planning to remove him. Arube's failed coup left Amin more brutal than ever. Family was no longer sacred. Everyone was expendable. At the peak of power, he renamed himself Conqueror of the British Empire. But the empire had long since left. He was fighting ghosts. His speeches grew more absurd. He claimed to speak with God. He claimed to swim with crocodiles. Uganda was watching a man unravel. In private, he danced to Cuban music, laughed with wives, ate like a king. Outside, bodies were being buried. Inside, Amin celebrated. For years, he ruled through terror. But now, enemies were closing in. He just didn't know how soon they'd strike. Amin's paranoia spread beyond politics. He believed his food was poisoned. His chefs were replaced weekly. He ate only what his mother's rituals allowed. He wore charms. He chanted blessings. His guards said he wouldn't walk through doors without consulting spirits. Superstition ruled the presidency. Meanwhile, Uganda's economy collapsed. Factories shut. Shelves emptied. While Amin danced, the nation starved. The world took notice. Sanctions, isolation, no more foreign aid. Amin became a ghost leader, famous but shunned. Still, he declared himself president for life. God's chosen ruler, even as the ground beneath him began to shake. In 1978, he made a fatal mistake, invading Tanzania. a nation far stronger, better prepared, and united. The war was swift. Tanzania pushed back. Amin's army fell apart. Defections, chaos, fear. His empire crumbled overnight. In April 1979, Amin fled the country. No final speech, no resistance, just silence and exile. He lived in Saudi Arabia until death. No trial, no justice, just quiet luxury, far from the country he destroyed. But the ghosts of his rule remain, in stories, in scars, in silence. Uganda survived, barely, and history still asks, how did one man become so feared? Even in exile, Amin believed he would return. He told his sons, one day, I'll rule again. But Uganda had moved on. His children lived comfortably abroad. Some became doctors, others businessmen. They were raised far from the fear he had created. In Uganda, wounds took years to heal. Families still whispered about lost fathers, missing uncles, vanished friends. Streets once filled with fear, slowly filled with music again. Children played, life returned, but shadows remained in memory. Historians still debate, was Amin mad or just evil? Did power corrupt him or reveal who he already was? Some believe he started with good intentions, stability, strength, but fear poisoned everything, and so did pride. Uganda now teaches his era in schools. Students learn his name, but not with admiration, with caution. Some elders refuse to speak of him. Too painful, too dangerous. Silence became their defense. Amin died in 2003, quietly, in a hospital bed, far from justice, far from home, and far from the people he once ruled. His legacy isn't a monument. It's a warning about fear, about unchecked power, and about the silence that lets it grow. In exile, Amin asked for Uganda's forgiveness, but he never apologized, not once. His words were hollow. Survivors wanted trials, truth, justice, but they got silence. The court stayed quiet. The wounds remained open. International media called him a monster. He called himself a misunderstood father. History had already chosen its side. A new generation grew up hearing whispers, stories from grandparents, photos hidden in drawers, names erased from family trees. Teachers tread carefully. They say, he ruled, people died, we remember, that's all. But memory is never that simple. Behind official stories are personal ones. A mother who waited at the gate. A son who never came home. Amin's regime left few survivors willing to speak, but those who do remember everything. He banned media, but couldn't silence memory. Every brick, every road, every grave still speaks. Today, Uganda rises, not because of Amin, but despite him. His story is a scar, not a foundation. Some say dictators never truly die. Their fear lives on, passed down in silence, in hesitation, in law. Amin taught Uganda one lesson. Never give one man too much power, or it may cost the soul of a nation. The Nile still flows, Kampala still wakes, but Amin is gone. His voice, his fear, his kingdom of silence. This story isn't about death. It's about survival. About how a country endured one of the darkest shadows in African history. We remember not to reopen wounds, but to stop them from ever bleeding again. Memory is protection. If you hear a story like this and feel nothing, then it's already begun again somewhere else. History doesn't need to be repeated. It needs to be recognized, spoken, faced. Idi Amin was one man. But power like his is always waiting, silent, smiling, promising. The next Amin might not wear medals, might not hold guns. He may look like a friend until it's too late. Ask hard questions, demand hard truths. That's how tyranny loses its grip, through knowledge. And so Uganda stands, bruised, not broken, scarred, not silent, alive, free, watching,